What's up? As it is usual here, and by usual I mean for the second time, in every video game that has an official cookbook, I'm just gonna grab its base recipe and do some tinkering here and there to, add this little personal touch, just like in my Fallout 4 video. And the dishes for this video are this, and this. Anyways, let's get started. The braided bread. The first time I saw it, I thought something like this buttery brioche-like bread made in some antique medieval oven, and its flavor was going to be something slightly sweet and fluffy, and did I say buttery? But according to the official cookbook, it's more like a spicy regular bread, not as buttery, but still slightly sweet and with some added dried fruits. In the books it is supposed to be accompanied by some Nordic spice butter, but in this case I decided to add it more to the dessert side. So for the bread dough we're going to start with 200 milliliters of warm milk, 6 grams of dry yeast, 80 grams of brown sugar, 1 whole egg, and 500 grams of all-purpose flour. And this is a part when we start to differ a bit, since according to the book we're gonna use a mix of Nordic spices, which are ground cinnamon, ground cardamom, ground cloves, ground mace, and ground seeds of paradise. Those last two I couldn't find, and according to my research we could replace them with nutmeg and black pepper respectively. Anyways, add them to the dough, followed by 2 tablespoons or around 30 grams of melted butter. Keep mixing and folding until it gets stretchy, and finally get some flour into your working table so you can place the dough and give it the shape of a ball. Then just place it in another container to let it rest and rise. Grab around 150 grams of any dried fruits of your choice. In my case, raisins, walnuts, peanuts, pecans, and almonds. Give it a rough chop and then just reserve until it's needed. And for the final element of the bread, we're gonna make some dulce de leche. Just mix a cup of milk and a can of condensed milk on a pot on medium-low heat and give it the occasional whisk from time to time so it doesn't burn at the bottom, always keeping an eye on it so it doesn't boil too much, otherwise, believe me, it's gonna be a mess. Next, the lavender dumpling. Well, actually, there is not a recipe for lavender dumplings on the official cookbook, so naturally I decided to create my own recipe from scratch. So what I'm going to do is to try to replicate this dessert with phyllo pastry for the dough, lavender custard for the filling, along with some blueberries and raspberries. Just because I want to, and because I love blueberries and raspberries. Alright, let's get around 200 grams of all-purpose flour into the working table. Make a hole in the center, then add 50 milliliters of vegetable oil, along with 60 milliliters of water, a whole egg, and a pinch of salt. Integrate this bad boy until it's homogenized, then start to fold and knead it until it gets stretchy, pretty much like a bread or pasta dough. And finally let it rest until it's kneaded. Next, the filling. Get 250 milliliters of milk into a pot on mid-heat, then add a tablespoon and a half of dried lavender flowers. Once the milk starts boiling, turn off the heat, put on the lid, and let it rest and infuse until the flavors kick in. Of course, you can strain the milk to keep the flowers out for the final product, or just let them stay in the custard, your choice. After around 10 minutes, we're gonna mix 5 egg yolks along with 25 grams of cornstarch and 50 grams of brown or white sugar. Then we mix it vigorously until the mix gets fluffy and white. Then turn up the heat to mid-height, let your lavender milk get temperature again, then pour it to our yolk butter mix, integrate completely, and get it back to the pot. Lower the heat to medium and let it boil until it cooks while whisking. You'll notice that it's going to thicken. Keep mixing for half a minute and then it is on. The last dessert for this video is going to be the Jazbay Crostata, or Crostata. This recipe is going to be the most accurate to real life since it's a classic and very simple to make. Starting off with the pastry, let's mix 250 milligrams of all-purpose flour, make the usual hole at the center, add 100 grams of brown sugar, integrate them, then add 125 grams of salted or unsalted butter, your choice. Integrate them but keep them separated, don't make a dough out of it, not yet. Place a whole egg, 2 tablespoons of ice cold water, the zest of an orange, and you may now form the dough. Remember that every recipe is referential. That means that every ingredient can vary depending of the brand you're using, for example, so you may need a little bit more or a little bit less of every component, ingredient. Anyways, get the dough into a recipient or just fill it with some plastic wrap and leave it into the fridge until it's back to the bread. Get some flour into your working table, again, give it a square-like shape, stretch it with a rolling pin until it's wide enough that we can place all the dulce de leche and the dried fruits. Now after you're done, just roll the dough up and tighten it very well as you do it. This will prevent for air pockets to form on the final product. We're almost ready, so just get some cooking oil or butter onto your open plate, spread it with a brush, and just before placing the dough, make a longitudinal section so you get two pieces, two beautiful layered pieces, and then we're just gonna braid them, kind of, then just take it to the plate and leave it rise for around another hour, and then into the oven, 180 degrees Celsius for around 25 minutes. Back to the lavender dumplings. This fillet dough is very special, because its ingredient proportion allows to stretch itself over its own weight, if that makes any sense. So either you can use that feature to stretch it, paper thin stretch it, or just help yourself with a rolling pin. Once that it's flat and stretched enough, we can proceed to cut it from 9 to more equal shapes like you're watching here, and 3 layers are going to be used for each dumpling. Of course you can add more if you want. And what we're going to do now is to coat every layer with a generous amount of butter or margarine and place them on top of each other. The butter is to prevent for the layers to stick and also will keep them crunchy. Then we can finish up the dumpling by adding a good amount of lavender custard, a raspberry and a blueberry. Finally grab the 3 layers of filo by the edges and finish making the shape of the dumpling like it looks in the game. Give it another coat of butter and then we can bake it, 180 degrees Celsius for 15 minutes. And the last part, the crostata filling. As we can see in the games, it is called Jazbay Crostata. What are Jazbay? Well, there are some kind of grapes in the game, so grapes, crostata, you get the picture. So in the end, of course, we're going to use blueberries and grapes. Anyways, here comes the annoying part. We're going to take out the grape seeds one by one. This amount is around 300 grams, so when we're done, add them into a pot along with the same amount of white sugar. And the blueberries too, 100 grams in this case. Add the juice of 1 orange, a small cinnamon stick, and leave it to cook at low heat for around half an hour. After the time you're going to notice that there's going to be a lot of liquid in the pot. Then we got 2 options. 1. To thicken it with some cornstarch, mix it with water, just a few teaspoons of starch, a dash of 2 of water, add the mix into the pot and whisk it until it thickens. Or 2, just leave it there until all the water evaporates and then you will have it. Now whatever you choose, let your filling cool down and let's get back to the pastry. Get some flour into your working table, again, get your dough, give it a round shape and flatten it with a rolling pin until it gets into a bit less than a centimeter girth. Next, put your stretched dough into a baking plate, or somewhere in which you can easily transport it into a baking plate, and this is important, place the cold filling into the center of the dough, get the edges and fold them into the center to give it the classic crostata aspect. Optionally you can place a bottomless mold to prevent the dessert to deform in the baking process. This one goes for 175 degrees Celsius for 25 to 30 minutes. And when they're all done, I recommend to cover them with lots and lots of powdered sugar. Anyways, thanks again for watching and enjoy.